Okay, so everybody should be able to see 2019 Rules of Golf, Structure and Overview. And that is not a misprint. This edition of the Rules of Golf is referred to as the 2019 Rules of Golf, even though we are now in 2021. That's the latest version of the Rules of Golf, and when they come out with a new version, it will have a different year associated with it. So what makes the Rules of Golf so complicated? Well, you can see the pictures before you really paint the picture there. Golf is played in many different landscapes. Think about playing golf here in Georgia versus playing golf out in Arizona in the desert, for example. There's a lot of space and a lot of different things that can happen to your golf ball. And so that's what makes the game of golf so complicated. If you think about any other sport, say football or baseball or basketball, those are generally played on a standard court or field that has certain dimensions to it. So there's only so many things that can happen within that small of an area. But as we all know, golf courses can be quite expansive. So the rules have to be complicated to help you get your ball from the teeing area and into the hole on each hole. But when they rewrote the rules of golf, they kept these principles in place, and they kind of drive everything that's in the rules of golf. And those are play the course as you find it and play the ball as it lies. And you'll hear that a lot throughout the presentation here today. You can see in the pictures, this is the great thing about golf. You're not guaranteed to have a good lie in the fairway, and you're not guaranteed to have a bad lie in the rough. So that's what makes golf so great. And we are to play the course as we find it and play the ball as it lies, but the rules have to dive into and address when we cannot play the ball as it lies, and we'll see a lot of that throughout the presentation as well. The quote here from Bob Jones: "Golf is the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots, you get good breaks from bad shots, but you have to play the ball where it lies." That's a great quote. Also, the rules are written with the mindset that golf is a game of honor and integrity. In a lot of other games, breaking the rules at times maybe could be part of the strategy. Think about a baseball player who's at bat and the ball is pitched and it comes really close to hitting him. A lot of times those players will pretend the ball hit them, and the umpire might agree and award the player first base when in fact a video replay or otherwise shows the ball did not hit the player. So golf is not that way, and you are expected to call penalties on yourself and monitor your own play when doing so. And here's a great example of that taking place, our first video of the presentation.
What happened there? It appeared the ball moved.
Let's see if we can see anything here. I couldn't tell from that angle.
So it's a great video. The quality is not the greatest, but it shows exactly what we're talking about. Davis Riley, the 2013 U.S. Junior Amateur Championship, the largest stage in junior golf. The final match is a 36-hole match, and he's on the 34th hole, 2 down. So essentially fighting to stay alive. And he stood over that golf ball and noticed that it moved, and nobody else on property saw the golf ball move. And I'm sure you didn't on the video either, but Davis did, and he called that penalty on himself. He lost that hole in the match right there on junior golf's biggest stage. And Davis got a lot of accolades for his conduct here, and that's exactly how we're supposed to play the game of golf. Again, the rules are written presuming players will play by them and not attempt to get away with infractions. Also, the 2019 rules of golf talk about pace of play more than ever. And let's look at this video on pace of play, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
It is important that you are aware of how your pace of play impacts others. The 2019 rules encourage prompt pace of play by all players by recommending that you play promptly throughout the round, such as by preparing in advance for each stroke, moving at a good pace between strokes and between holes, and that you make a stroke in no more than 40 seconds.
Okay, so that last line there of the video is very important. So they even went so far in the new rules of golf to put a number on the amount of time it should take you to play a stroke, and that number is 40 seconds. And that's from the time you arrive at your golf ball and there are no distractions and it's your turn to play. You are to select your club, look at your yardage, and hit the golf ball all within that 40-second time frame. So I would invite you all to go out in the yard and practice your pre-shot routine to make sure that it's 40 seconds or less. 40 seconds or less. And the other important thing about this is that golf tournaments that you play in or entities that you play with may have their own pace of play policy in place. The rules allow that. The GSGA Junior Tour has its own pace of play policy, so just be mindful of that when you're playing in different events. If they have a pace of play policy in place, you must adhere to that, just like any other rule of golf. This concept of ready golf is also talked about in the new rules of golf, and it's very important, and it helps you when it comes to pace of play. So let's watch this video.
The order of play when starting a hole depends on who has the honor. After that, it is based on which ball is farthest from the hole. In stroke play, however, there is no penalty for playing out of turn, and the 2019 rules both allow and encourage you to play ready golf, which means to play in a safe and responsible order that is most convenient and that saves time. These players agreed to play out of turn because the player farther from the hole had a difficult shot, and the other player was ready to play.
Okay, so hopefully that made sense for everybody. The young lady had a difficult shot. The gentleman was out in the fairway with an easy shot from a management standpoint. So he just waved over and said, "I'm going to go ahead." And she said, "That's fine." And that's encouraged. And if you can play ready golf safely and without distracting other players, then we invite you to do that because it's going to help your group maintain pace.
All right, guys, equipment. The main thing here on this section is limit of 14 clubs. I think we all know this one. So a player must not start a round with more than 14 or at any point during the round add clubs to go over the 14 club limit. Another major point in our equipment section here is distance measuring devices. I think a lot of us use these now. So by default, they are allowed unless the tournament you're playing in, the committee puts in a local rule prohibiting them. So the main thing is measuring distance only. So we can see here things that are not allowed. If it measures elevation changes or if it interprets information for you, such as gives you a recommended line of play or a recommended club selection, all of that would not be allowed. It's got to be measuring distance only.
All right, so getting into what constructs a golf course, and there are 5 areas that do that. So first would be the general area, and simply put, it covers everything on the entire course except 4 specific areas. Now getting into the first of these specific areas is the teeing area, and this only comprises of the tees that you're playing and the hole that you're playing. And so it's the tee that you must start from on a hole. And they're defined by, as you can see in the picture here, it's the front outside edge of the tee markers. And you can measure back 2 club lengths from there. So you have a little bit of a rectangle area there. If you are able to see in the image, the tee markers ahead of where these clubs are, those would be considered the general area. So again, it only applies for the tees that you are playing and the hole that you are playing. Now moving on to the next specific area would be bunkers. And unlike the teeing area, this covers all of the bunkers on the golf course, whether you're on the 4th hole or the 8th hole. And same goes for penalty areas. They also are all of the penalty areas on the golf course. And rounding out these 4 specific areas would be the putting green. And the putting green is similar to the teeing area, where it is based on the hole that you are playing. So if you're on the 4th hole, the 4th hole putting green is considered a putting green, and every other green out there is what we call a wrong putting green, and you would have to take free relief from that. So to round out and to recap these areas, you have 5 areas of the course beginning with the general area, and 4 specific ones of the teeing area of the hole that you're playing, all of the bunkers, all of the penalty areas, and the putting green of the hole.
We're going to first cover one of the areas that Kevin discussed, and that's bunkers. We'll start with the video.
Everybody has spent time at the beach, and while it can be enjoyable, on the golf course, most players prefer to avoid these specially prepared areas of sand called bunkers. If you happen to find yourself in a bunker, make sure you don't deliberately touch the sand to test its consistency, such as with your hand, a rake, or a club. Also, don't touch the sand behind or in front of the ball or during a practice swing, even if by accident. The good news is you can move loose impediments and movable obstructions and even touch the sand with your club elsewhere in the bunker, as long as it is not to test the condition. When you decide your ball is unplayable in a bunker, there are several one-stroke penalty options to consider. In the bunker, you can either drop within 2 club lengths or go back on the line. Or, for a 2-stroke penalty, you can get out of the bunker by going back on the line as far as you like. Also, going back to where you last played is an alternative, under stroke and distance.
Okay, so a great video there talking about bunkers. Before we talk about bunkers, we need to determine when our ball lies in a bunker, and that is quite simply when any part of the ball touches sand on the ground inside the edge of the bunker. So I think we can all agree that that ball there is definitely in the bunker. It's touching the sand. One item of note is, let's say there's a grass island in the middle of the bunker and your ball was on that island and it was not touching any sand. Well, your ball would not be in the bunker. It would be in the general area, and you would not have to proceed under any sort of bunker regulations. So other things, as the video said, that we can do in the bunker, we can remove loose impediments and movable obstructions. And when we do this, it includes any reasonable touching or movement of the sand in the bunker. We can touch the sand in this instance if we're removing a loose impediment or a movable obstruction. However, these are situations that would result in a penalty, and that's before we make a stroke at the ball in the bunker, we must not deliberately touch the sand as they're doing here in this picture to test its condition with a hand, club, rake, or other object. We cannot ground our club in the bunker either right behind or right in front of the ball. Or when we're making a practice swing, we may not touch sand. Or making the backswing for the stroke. And here's a video that kind of shows us these items again.
Some bunker restrictions continue to exist. For example, you are still not allowed to touch the sand with your club, behind or in front of your ball. When making a practice swing, or when making your backswing.
So a great video there showing us what restrictions still exist.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Let's watch this video.
Penalty areas include any body of water on the course, plus any other areas that have been marked. If you happen to find your ball in a penalty area, you can play your ball as it lies, if possible to do so. Before playing the stroke, it's okay to ground your club, take practice swings that touch the ground, and move loose impediments. Penalty areas can be marked either red or yellow, and for one penalty stroke, you have several relief options. The first one is to play a ball under stroke and distance from where you made your last stroke. Another option is to take back on the line relief by imagining a straight line from the hole through the spot where your ball last crossed into the penalty area. Choose a spot on that line, then drop and play from within one club length of it, not nearer the hole. You do have a third relief option if your ball is in a red penalty area that allows you to find the spot where your ball last crossed into the penalty area and drop a ball within 2 club lengths of that spot, no closer to the hole. Also, there may be an area marked as a drop zone that could be available as an additional option.
All right, so first off, when is your ball in the penalty area? It's in the penalty area when any part of the ball touches or lies on the ground or anything else inside the edge of the penalty area. So you can see there on that picture, that ball's kind of wedged in between, what would be a kind of a movable obstruction, the ledge, the rock ledge there, and the ground. But since any part of that ball is inside the edge of the penalty area, that ball is considered in the penalty area. Okay, when your ball is in a penalty area, you can play the ball as it lies, or you can take penalty area relief. And the thing here with that, Jeremy, if you could pop back real quick. So basically, there are no special rules limiting how a ball may be played in a penalty area. So, while you're in there, you can ground your club, move loose impediments. Obviously, you just have to be careful not to cause your ball to move, but there are no rules restricting what how you can play that ball in the penalty area. All right, so a player may play the ball as it lies in a penalty area or take penalty relief. So the player may play a ball outside penalty by taking relief under 17.1D or 17.2. So we can kind of see here a few of our options. 17.1D, you can see we've always got stroke and distance. With red penalty area, we can do our 2 club lengths, or we can always go back on the line. All right, so a player's ball is in a penalty area, including when it's known or virtually certain, even though the ball may not be found. So you can see this young lady here is looking for a ball in a penalty area. So we can see, basically, we may have not seen the ball or we haven't found the ball in there, but we know that there's really no other place it could be without we would have found it if it was there in the fairway. You can see that red line kind of includes all of that overgrown area leading into what the water area. So as long as it's known or virtually certain, the player has these relief options. All right, for one penalty stroke, you've got stroke and distance relief. You've got back on the line relief, and for lateral relief, for red penalty area only, you have 2 club lengths. So we're going to talk about 2 lateral relief options tonight. I always like to remind players, sometimes it's confusing. Is it 1 club length is at 2 club lengths. You're only going to have 2 situations when you have a 2 club length measuring, and that's when you're taking lateral relief. One of those being lateral relief for penalty area, and the other is going to be for unplayable, which we'll get into a little bit later. All right, so stroke and distance relief, we'll dive into each of these a little bit more in depth. So this is for both red and yellow. You're just going to go back to where you played your last shot. So you can see here, if your last stroke was made from the teeing area, you can tee it up anywhere back inside the teeing area. You don't have to have a specific spot that you hit your last shot from. Anywhere in the teeing area is fine. If you were in the general area, bunker, or a penalty area, you're going to go back to where that last stroke was made, and then you get a 1 club length relief area from there. And then if somehow you put it on the putting green, it goes into a penalty area, you want to take stroke and distance, and you're going to place it back on the putting green, just directly back on that spot. All right, we've got a video here explaining back on the line relief.
When taking relief from a penalty area for 1 penalty stroke, one of your relief options in the 2019 rules is going back on the line. Follow these steps. Estimate the point on the edge of the penalty area where your ball last crossed as it went in. Imagine a straight line running from the hole through that estimated point and extending behind the penalty area. Go back as far as you like and identify a spot on that line. Measure or estimate a 1 club length wide relief area on either side of and behind that spot. In the 2019 rules, a club length is always the longest club in your bag except your putter. Then drop a ball in the relief area. Your dropped ball must land in and be played from the relief area.
All right, so that really explains back on the line. We're not going to get too much in depth. These videos are really great. It gives you a visual representation of how you take that relief option. All right, the next one is going to be lateral relief. Same thing here. We've got a great video showing how to take lateral relief.
In the 2019 rules, when you take lateral relief from a red penalty area under a 1-stroke penalty, estimate the point on the edge of the penalty area where your ball last crossed as it went in. Starting at that point, measure or estimate your 2 club lengths relief area outside the penalty area that is not nearer the hole. In the 2019 rules, club lengths are the length of the longest club in your bag, except your putter, and then drop a ball in that area. Your drop ball must land in and come to rest in the relief area.
Okay, so one thing we like to touch on here that, obviously they showed a great job of how to take that relief procedure. But you can see there, if that player is right-handed, his feet, his stance may be back in the penalty area. Really, the only thing you're looking for here is your ball. So whether you're in or out of the penalty area, it all depends on where your ball is located. So always be mindful of that when you're taking your relief. If you drop it right on the line, your stance might have to be, closer and in the penalty area. So just make sure, that would not be a redrop situation. The ball would be in play and you would have to play it as it lies now.
Leading into putting greens, here we have a video.
The rules allow many special permissions on the putting green that you don't get anywhere else. Marking, lifting, and cleaning your ball on the green is always permitted. And while you cannot repair aeration holes, natural surface imperfection, or any normal wear on the green, there's lots you can do. It's okay to repair most damage, such as ball marks, old hole plugs, spike marks, and anything caused by shoes, animals, or maintenance practices. All of those fixes must be done promptly and not improve your line of play beyond the repair. The green is also the only place on the course where you can remove sand and loose soil, and touching the green to point where you expect to aim or putt is also permitted.
All right. I like to call these the relaxed rules for the putting green because you can do things on the putting green that you are not able to do anywhere else on the golf course. But you have to be on the putting green yourself. So when this occurs is when your ball is touching the surface of the putting green. As you can see here in the picture, Hopefully the ball is lying very close to the edge of the green and the collar, but we're able to determine that the bottom of the ball is actually resting on the putting green. So this player would be able to have all of those options available to them. And so when you're on the putting green, you are able to lift and clean your ball. And before doing so, the spot of the ball must be marked. It doesn't matter how you mark it with your coin, whether you mark it in front of the ball, behind the ball, or to the sides. It matters that you mark it before you lift it and you replace it on its original spot. Now, there are improvements that you can do to the putting green that you cannot do anywhere else. And this doesn't matter if you are on or off the putting green yourself. So if there's sand and loose soil, as you can see in the top picture there, the player's removing some sand. That's allowed whether his ball is at rest on the putting green or behind him on the collar. However, if the sand was on the collar, the player would not be able to remove that. And also including in that is repair to damage. So as the video described to us, old hole plugs, ball marks, spike marks, those are all things that you would be able to repair. Now, there's no penalty for accidentally causing your ball to move. And there are a couple of situations that could occur, and here we have a video.
Under the 2019 rules, if you accidentally move your ball or ball marker on the putting green, there is no penalty. For example, if you accidentally move your ball in making a practice swing or in preparing for your stroke, drop your ball marker on your ball and move it. Move your ball with your foot. Or cause your ball marker to move. There is no penalty, and you simply replace your ball or ball marker on its original spot.
All right, that's a great video because all of those could occur and they're all different kind of actions, but with the same cause, which moves your ball or ball mark. And of course, it's accidental. As you can see in the video, the player replaced either the ball or the ball marker on its original spot. That is the procedure that you would do if that happens to you. Now, there's another situation that if your ball is moved by natural forces, which we consider gravity or wind, there are two different things that will happen depending on what you've already done. So if you've already lifted and replaced your ball, that's what we call buying the spot. You bought that for a quarter, that spot is yours. So if natural forces causes your ball to move, then you would simply replace it on its original spot. And here's a video with that.
After you mark, lift, and then replace your ball on the putting green, if it moves for any reason, including for your own accidental actions, or for some other reason such as wind, always replace your ball back on its original spot. If you don't know the exact spot, estimate it as accurately as you can, and replace the ball there.
Now, if this same situation were to happen before you lifted and replaced the spot, you haven't bought that spot yet, so you don't own it. So if you hit a 30-foot putt and you're walking up and wind causes your ball to move an extra foot, you simply play it from its new spot since you haven't already lifted and replaced it. And there's a quick little image here if you're able to see it. And so that was the situation I'm talking about. That ball moved just slightly, only about maybe half an inch, but that player hadn't marked and lifted the spot, so they would just play it from its new spot and play on.
Okay, so moving on to dropping procedures. We've covered the areas of the course in great detail now, and so we're going to get into some situations of both penalty and free relief. And to do that, we're going to, in most cases, drop the golf ball. And under the new rules, there is a right way to drop the golf ball, and it consists of all these consists of all these factors here. First of all, the player themselves must drop the golf ball. It cannot be their partner or a caddy. It must be the player themselves. Dropping it from knee height is required. You must drop it straight down, so you cannot throw, spin, or roll the ball as you drop it. It must not hit the player or the player's equipment before hitting the relief area. Again, it cannot hit your foot on the way down before it hits the ground. And the ball must hit in the relief area. Each drop has two components to it. The first is a reference point, and this is the starting point for measuring. And the second component is the relief area, and this is where the ball must be dropped and where it must come to rest. Relief areas, and Casey alluded to this earlier in the presentation, but they're all measured one club length. It's plain and simple from the reference point, except for the two instances she mentioned. One we've already covered, lateral relief from a penalty area, and the other we will cover, and that's lateral relief from an unplayable ball. Those are the only two situations under the rules where you're taking two club lengths of relief. And the relief area must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. And this video will show us about relief areas.
When you drop in relief areas defined by 1 or 2 club lengths, in the 2019 rules, a club length will always mean the length of the longest club in your bag, except your putter. For most players, that club will be their driver, but not always. This player is using his driver to measure his 2 club length lateral relief area outside a red penalty area. This player's back on the line relief area is 1 club length on either side of and behind the point he has chosen on the line from the hole through where his ball was unplayable in the bunker. He is estimating the size of his relief area without measuring, then dropping well within 1 club length of that point. Finally, when a player measures with a shorter club, it is still the longest club in their bag, except the putter, that defines the relief area. Remember, when you drop, your ball must always land in, come to rest in, and be played from the relief area.
Okay, so a great video there about relief areas. A great question is what happens to my ball, and when and what situation do I need to redrop my golf ball? And this video is going to explain that, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
In the 2019 rules, when dropping and taking free relief or penalty relief, your ball must be dropped in the defined relief area, and it must come to rest in there too. Most of the time, with the knee-high dropping procedure, that will happen on your first drop. When it doesn't, drop a second time. If that drop doesn't stay within the relief area either, place a ball where your second drop first touched the ground.
Okay, so a great example there of when you have to redrop, and that's quite simply when the ball rolls outside of the relief area. If that happens, you're going to redrop it. If it does the same thing, you're going to place it on the spot it hit on the second drop. There are wrong ways to drop the golf ball, and these do not count as one of your 2 valid drops that you're allowed before you place the ball. The first would be if the ball is dropped not from knee height. So you can see here the young lady in the picture is not dropping the ball from knee height. The second would be, let's say it hits my foot before it hits in the relief area. That would be a no drop as well. Now, one situation to bring to your attention is, let's say it hits the ground in the relief area and then rolls up against my foot. Do not pick that ball up because it is in play. And the caveat there is, because it hit the ground in the relief area first and then roll against your foot, as long as it still remained in the relief area, that ball's in play. Or like this picture, if it does not hit the relief area when dropped, even though this ball rolled into the relief area, this would be a no drop as well. It has to hit the ground in the relief area to be a valid drop. This is a great change within the rules of golf that is more player friendly. All drops allow the original ball or another ball to be used. So anytime I'm taking free relief and penalty relief and I'm dropping the golf ball, I can substitute a golf ball. So let's say I hit a ball out there and it's near the cart path and it hits the cart path and gets scuffed. When I go to take relief from the cart path, if I choose to, I can substitute a new ball for that ball. And the video here will show us that.
When the 2019 rules let you lift your ball to take relief instead of playing it as it lies, you will be allowed to either use your original ball or substitute and use a different ball. In the 2019 rules, you are allowed to substitute a ball when taking free relief, as well as when taking penalty relief. This player is substituting a ball when taking free relief from a cart path.
Okay, so a great example there of when you could get a brand new ball into play. And again, this is just on drop, so be careful. It's not when I've marked my ball on the putting green and I have to replace that ball. I'm not allowed to substitute a ball in that situation, but for any time I'm dropping for free or penalty relief, I can substitute a golf ball.
All right, guys, let's watch this video on loose impediments.
A fundamental principle in golf is play the course as you find it, but it's not always that simple. Leaves, branches, grass clippings, and other natural objects sometimes get in the way. These are known as loose impediments. These detached natural objects can make things more difficult than necessary. Fortunately, you are allowed to move loose impediments without penalty, even in bunkers and penalty areas. But there is an element of risk involved. If moving loose impediments causes your ball to move, you must replace it and add 1 penalty stroke, unless it happens on the putting green, where there is no penalty.
All right, so loose impediments. If we don't know, these are these natural objects that we find on the course, leaves, sticks, things that we find in nature that are easily removed. Without penalty, a player can remove loose impediments anywhere on or off the course, and you can do so in any way. So we've all maybe seen on a putting green, we have a lot of loose impediments there. Take your hat off, towel, really move those in any way that you can get them out of your way. All right, so the note to make with this is if in moving one of those loose impediments you cause your ball to move, replace it back on its original spot and add 1 penalty stroke. If you don't replace your ball, you've now put the ball from a wrong place and you're going to get 2 penalty strokes. So always, if that happens, there's a lot of times there's that, stick right up next to your ball and you think, oh, I think I can move that. And you attempt to do it and it causes your ball to move. Just make sure you put it back and add 1 penalty stroke. All right, if the moved ball had been at rest anywhere except on the putting green or teeing area, so obviously if this happens on the putting green, there's no, we'll get into, we just covered putting greens and we learned that already, but if this happens anywhere on the putting green or teeing area, no penalty, just put it back. But if it happens anywhere else, add the 1 penalty stroke. So that includes general area, bunker, penalty area. Our next section is movable obstructions, and let's watch this video.
The 2 fundamental principles in golf are play the ball as it lies and play the course as you find it. But sometimes you just can't do that when artificial obstacles such as rakes, water bottles, player equipment, waste baskets, or other objects get in your way. They are known as movable obstructions. These obstacles can be moved out of your way anywhere, even in bunkers and penalty areas. While not required, it's a good idea to mark your ball before moving an obstruction. If the ball moves, there is no penalty. Just simply replace it and play on.
All right, so movable obstructions are these artificial man-made options or objects, and these are not considered, a challenge of playing the course. If your ball is right up next to, a loose impediment, it's just kind of part of the game. But if it's up next to these movable obstructions, you're not expected to play around these obstructions. So without penalty, you can remove the movable obstruction anywhere on or off the course, and same thing, you can do that in any way needed. All right, so if your ball moves when you're moving a movable obstruction, you're not going to get a penalty. So if your ball comes to rest, we can see right up next to that rake, it's maybe on a slope, you move the rake, moves, no penalty, just place it back. So you're not going to get penalized for causing your ball to move when you're trying to get these artificial items out of your way. So the thing there is if you know you're close to, right up on that movable obstruction, you think your ball's likely to move, or even if you think it probably won't move, it's always a good idea to stick a little tee in the ground right there, just so if it moves, we can know we can put it right back where it was.
All right, thank you,
The two
Casey.
fundamental principles of golf are play the ball as it lies and play the course as you find it. But to make the game more fair, you aren't required to play from ground under repair, temporary water, animal holes, or immovable obstructions such as cart paths and sprinkler heads. These are known as abnormal course conditions. If you want to play your ball as it lies, go right ahead, but you are allowed to take relief without penalty. Here's how. First, you need to determine the nearest spot, no closer to the hole, where the abnormal course condition is no longer in your way. It's helpful to mark that spot with a T. Then, determine the area within one club length, no closer to the hole. Drop your ball and play on.
All right, so abnormal course conditions, as you saw in the video, there are 4 kind of separate scenarios that make up what an abnormal course condition is. So the video alluded to animal holes, under repair, immovable obstructions like a cart path or an electrical box, and temporary water. And real quick on temporary water, just to touch on it, if you're playing right after a downpour, as you can see in the image there on the right, but say that's in the fairway, it's water that's resting there or is present when you take a stance. You can't go jumping in trying to get water to come up. And so the way I learned it is it's your stance, it's not your dance. So if you go in there and it's just mud and it's kind of loose mud, that unfortunately is not temporary water. And so, like I said, they all make up abnormal course conditions, but they all have separate definitions in the book. You do get free relief in the general area when you have interference. And so what makes up interference? And so you must have one of these interference scenarios for you to be able to take free relief. So if your ball is touching or is in or on an abnormal position, as you can see here in the image of the ball on the ground under repair, and the bottom image, the ball is, I don't know if you can see that, but the ball is resting on the cart path. Or if the abnormal course condition physically interferes with your intended stance or your intended swing, again, resorting back to the images here, the player is on the cart path. It's affecting his stance, not only his line or his lie of the golf ball. In the bottom image, it's interfering with his intended line or his intended swing. You do not get relief for your line of play. So if this player in the bottom image was back, 10 feet or so, you do not get line of play relief. It must interfere with your lie, your stance, or your swing. Now, you do not get relief, and interference is not in the definition if it's close enough to the player. Again, there's no interference for this. So the image here of a sprinkler head between the player's stance and the lie of the golf ball. It may distract her. She may not like the sprinkler head there, but since it does not interfere with any of the three scenarios, she is not able to take free relief. Now we have a quick video here of what to do with your relief option.
The first step in taking free relief from conditions such as ground under repair, temporary water, and immovable obstructions is to find the nearest point of complete relief. This is the spot, either left of, right of, or behind, where your ball lies that is not closer to the hole and where the condition you are taking relief from is no longer in your way. You determine this spot by simulating the stance, swing, and direction of play you would use to play your ball if the condition didn't exist. The nearest point can be different depending on whether you are right or left-handed, your height, or your choice of club, etc. It's important to remember the nearest point isn't always the nicest point. In this case, the player's nearest point of complete relief from this path is under the tree, not to the left of the path in the clear. So it's a good idea not to lift your ball before figuring this out, because sometimes the best option is to just play the ball as it lies.
All right, the ending of that video with the player on the cart path there on the right with the tree, that is the one scenario from the video that I like to point out the most. Whenever we roll up as rules officials with a player on a cart path especially, is we don't want the player to lift the ball until they know they want to take relief, because it may not be their nearest point of complete relief may not be the most desirable, and it may just be best for them to play it from the cart path, as you saw in the video there. When doing so with your relief, you may play the original ball, or you may also substitute another ball because you are dropping. Now, getting into the relief procedure, this image we saw when Jeremy was presenting about dropping procedure, your nearest or your reference point is the nearest point of complete relief. Again, it may not be the most desirable, so it's best to keep your ball there until you know you would like to take that relief option. Once you do, again, it's free relief. You measure out 1 club length from that reference point. There are limitations to this. It must be in the general area. You must not drop nearer the hole than the reference point. And it must be complete of all of the interference options that we discussed earlier. So as it takes just one of the relief option or one of the interference scenarios to get the relief option, you must be clear of all 3 interference scenarios. Now, moving on to embedded ball, similar to abnormal course conditions, free relief is available in the general area, and this is anywhere in the general area, not just fairways or closely mown, but it could be rough as well. If you're embedded on the putting green, you don't have to overthink this. You can just simply lift the ball, repair the pitch mark, and just replace it back down. However, you do not get embedded ball relief in the bunker or in the penalty area. Now, your reference point when taking free relief from an embedded ball, your reference point is always going to be the spot directly behind where the ball is embedded. You can't choose left or right. It's always directly behind the ball. And again, you measure out 1 club length, and you drop in that relief area and play from the relief area.
All right, our next section is when your ball is lost or out of bounds.
We have all experienced losing a ball or hitting one out of bounds. When that happens, you You are penalized 1 stroke and must reestablish your progression of playing from the tee into the hole by going back and playing again from where you last played. This is called playing under stroke and distance. If your previous stroke was from the tee, tee it up again, from anywhere within that area. If your last stroke was made from the fairway, the rough, a bunker, or a penalty area, simply go back and drop a ball within 1 club length of and not nearer the hole than the spot where you last played. Stroke and distance is your only option for a ball that is out of bounds or lost, except when there is a local rule in effect that provides an alternative you can learn about in another video.
All right, so when a ball is lost or out of bounds, when it is lost, it's if it's not found within 3 minutes of the player or the caddy beginning to search for it. So I think we've all had this happen. Maybe mom, dad, other spectators are at an event. You hit one, over near some houses. They go ahead and start looking for it, or maybe it's thick rough. See if it's maybe lost in some of that tall grass. So your time starts once you or your caddy get to that area and begin searching, and you have 3 minutes. All right, when is your ball out of bounds? Your ball is out of bounds only when all of it is outside the boundary edge of the course. So we've got several scenarios here. We can see in the pictures, the image there on the left, out of bounds is defined by some white stakes. The image on the right, we've got a white line on the ground. I think the majority of what we see at most golf courses are going to be the white stakes. So you can see we've got a few balls here, really close to being out of bounds. So you can see the one with the red X on it closest to the stake. You can see there, even though it's in between those 2 white stakes, the edge is going to be the course side at ground level. And it's got to have some part on the course. So you can see there, no part of that ball is in the green area on the course side. So unfortunately, that ball is out of bounds. Now, if we look in that same picture on the left, the green check mark up at the top, you can see that one is also in between the 2 white stakes. But we can see it's about 50% in the out of bounds section and 50% on the course. So not all of that ball is out of bounds. So that ball is in bounds and that player can play that ball. And it's the same thing here with if it's a line on the ground. It's just going to be that course side edge of the line. So you can see that the check mark on the left is the same thing as if it was defined by stakes. We're about 50-50 there, but the red X, the one that's sitting right on the line, it's really close, but you can see there's no part of that ball on the green course side edge. So unfortunately that ball is out of bounds. So I know it gets a little tricky when you're right there on the boundary edge, but always remember all of your ball has to be out of bounds in order to be officially out of bounds. All right, so what happens when our ball is lost or it is out of bounds? All right, your only option is going to be playing stroke and distance. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to where you last played from. We saw this in the video. So area, we saw all of those areas that you would go back and take your relief area, and you're just going to add 1 penalty stroke. So there's going to be no other options unless there's a local rule in effect. I know with the changes, we all got excited about a local rule that can be put into place. But we're not going to talk about that tonight. But like I said, unless that's put into place for your specific tournament by the committee, your only option is always going to be stroke and distance. All right, next we're going to cover provisional ball.
If you hit your golf ball out of bounds or you just lose it, the rules require you to play another one from where you last hit under the penalty of stroke and distance. Looking for a lost ball only to have to return to the previous spot and play the next shot can take a long time and disrupt the pace of play. To help with this, consider playing a provisional ball.
We're going to need to hit a provisional
Not only does it save time, it also takes away from the uncertainty. If you find your original ball inbounds within the 3-minute search time, then finish playing the hole with it and pick that provisional up. But if you can't find it, or it is out of bounds, then just continue playing the provisional ball.
All right, so when a provisional ball is allowed, so if your ball might be lost anywhere outside of a penalty area, or it might be out of bounds. So, I think we've all had a situation where we think, it may be out of bounds, may lose it. I'm not sure what I'm going to find when I get up there. We always recommend for players to play a provisional. This is, essentially a free shot, to say the least, if your ball may be out of bounds. The last thing any of us want to do, especially in walking competitions, is to walk all the way up there, realize, okay, I can't find it, 3 minutes has passed, or I found it, it's out of bounds, and have to make the long walk back to the tee. It's not enjoyable for you, the players you're playing with, the group behind you, or the committee, with making sure pace of play guidelines are followed. So always recommend that if you think your ball may be lost outside of a penalty area, or it may be out of bounds, always play that provisional. So the main thing here is announcing that you are playing a provisional. If you just tee it up, you've got to use that word provisional. You've got to make the announcement. And we see a couple ways here that you can and can't do that. So it's not enough to just say, I'm playing again, or I'm going to play another. So all of those, they don't know that you're just proceeding under stroke and distance relief and just going to play another one. So you have to use the word provisional, or otherwise clearly indicate that you're playing the ball provisionally in case you do not find that first one. So you can also say, I'm playing under rule 18.3 if you would like. And one thing I'd like to note here, so if the player does not announce this and plays the ball from where the previous stroke was made, the player's ball is in play under penalty of stroke and distance. So what a lot of us don't realize is if, just in frustration, in the heat of the moment, you blocked it out to the right, you're not happy with it, you just tee up another one and hit it without saying anything. Unfortunately, you have just proceeded under stroke and distance. You just hit your third shot from the tee, and if you find your original ball, that ball is no longer an option. Your ball in play is the second one that you hit. So always make sure you make that announcement. All right, so when does your provisional ball become your ball in play? There's going to be two situations when that happens. When the original ball is lost anywhere on the course except for in a penalty area, so you go up there, 3 minutes pass, you haven't found your ball, right at the end of that 3 minutes, your provisional ball is now your ball in play. Or if you get up there, you realize your ball is out of bounds, your provisional ball is in play. The second situation is when you play a provisional ball from a spot closer to the hole than where the original ball is estimated to be. So let's say you hit your first shot out to the right, it's about 150 yards, you estimate that it's either lost or out of bounds, about 150 yards from the hole. You hit your provisional, stripe it right down the middle, and it's about 100 yards from the hole. So you cannot go up there and continually to provisionally play that ball, just to maybe see what you would have with that score, to see if you even want to find that ball. Once you play the provisional ball closer to the hole than where your original ball would be, your provisional ball is now in play. So always make sure to be aware of where both of those balls are estimated to be.
Our final section we're going to talk about here today is ball unplayable.
Sometimes your ball ends up in a place where it is impossible or difficult to play from. Only you can decide if your ball is unplayable. You can make that decision anywhere on the course except for one, when your ball is in a penalty area, where the penalty area rule applies. When deciding a ball is unplayable, you have 3 relief options, but all come with a 1-stroke penalty. The most frequently used option is to drop within 2 club lengths of the ball, but no closer to the hole. The second option is to imagine a straight line from the hole through the location of the unplayable ball. Choose a spot on that line behind your ball, then drop and play from within 1 club length of it, not nearer the hole. And the least frequently used option is stroke and distance, which means you can go back to the spot where you last played. There is a fourth option that only applies when you decide your ball is unplayable in a bunker. More on that in the video about bunkers.
Okay, so unplayable ball. You are able to declare your ball unplayable anywhere on the course except a penalty area, and that includes bunkers, and we'll get into that towards the end of the section. But if your ball is not playable under, in your determination in a penalty area, then your only option is to proceed under penalty area relief. However, I do have 3 options available to me that all cost me 1 penalty stroke when I want to declare my ball unplayable. And they're going to be very similar to other options we've seen in other rules tonight. First, I can always proceed under stroke and distance whether or not I've even found the original ball. So let's say I hit my ball out towards a large canyon, and I walk over there and I decide I don't even want to look for the ball. I'm just going to declare it unplayable. I can always take my stroke and distance relief option without finding the ball. However, the other 2 options require me to find the original ball and declare it unplayable. And that's back on the line relief and lateral relief. Again, my first option is stroke and distance, as it is with most other rules. I can always play my ball from where my previous stroke was made. With back on the line relief for unplayable ball, my reference point is the spot of the original ball. I'm going to line that up with the flagstick and go back on that line as far as I would like and drop it within my relief area. When I'm choosing my spot on the line, and this goes with penalty area relief as well, it's a good idea for you all to get in the habit of putting a tee or something on the ground to declare that spot, because that way you and your fellow players know where your 1 club length is measured from for the relief area. Once again, that's 1 club length. My third option is our second time where I get to do 2 club lengths, and that's from lateral relief for an unplayable ball. Again, my reference point is the spot of the original ball, and I can measure 2 club lengths from that spot and drop a ball within that relief area. And as the video alluded to, this is often the most used option when it comes to unplayable ball, but I would caution you to consider all of your options before proceeding, because it may not be your best option. Take, for instance, this picture. Let's say this is a group of bushes. You can see 2 club lengths here isn't really going to get us much space to drop it in. It may be better for me to play back on the line or even stroke and distance in some instances. Because the caveat here is, let's say I drop my ball in this relief area and it rolls into another position where I cannot play it. That is not a redrop situation. That is a situation where I would have to take another unplayable or another penalty stroke to get it into a position where I could play it. So just be careful and think through all your options before proceeding. I can declare my ball unplayable in a bunker, and there are options available to me. The first of which is stroke and distance, and if my ball was played from outside the bunker, then I may take my ball outside the bunker and play from where I previously played from. My other 2 options, back on the line and 2 club lengths, require me to drop the ball in the bunker. So I can only go back on the line as far as the back edge of the bunker because my ball must be dropped in the bunker. There's a 4th option that was added with the new rules, and that's back on the line relief outside the bunker for 2 penalty strokes, and we have a video showing that.
When you decide your ball in a bunker is unplayable, Under the 2019 rules, you have an extra option that lets you drop back on the line outside the bunker for a penalty of 2 strokes. Imagine a straight line running from the hole through where your unplayable ball is. Identify a spot on that line as far behind the bunker as you like. Measure or estimate a 1 club length wide relief area on either side of and behind that spot. Then drop a ball in that area. Your dropped ball must land in and be played from the relief area.
Okay, so this again is a situation where if you're not a great bunker player, you may want to consider it. If you know it's going to take you more than 2 to get out of the bunker, then this may be a better option for you to go back on the line outside the bunker for 2 penalty strokes.